If love asks you to close a door on the one who first opened the world to you, is it truly love, or pride wearing love's perfume? Kofi Mensah's life was small enough to fit inside a blue plastic basin. Nails in a tin, a measuring tape curled like a sleeping snake, a battered hammer his late father had used before him. On most mornings in Kumasi, he balanced that basin on his head, the way the market women balanced oranges or smoked fish, and walked to the midtown streets where he took odd carpentry jobs, fix a sagging door here, plane a swollen window there. It was humble work, but it paid for his mother's medicine and the little place they rented behind the plantain seller's stall. His mother, Esi, kept a garden that refused to be discouraged, bitter leaf and okra pushing past cracked concrete as if hope were a root. When Kofi returned dusty and tired, she pressed his shoulders and said the old words, Onyame beka woho, God will hold you. She kept the house with quiet hands. They ate light soup, counted coins, and talked nonsense so the worries would sleep. Then came Amma. She arrived first as a rumour, the niece of a well-known importer, fresh from a year in London, taking the neighbourhood cafe as her personal office. When Kofi finally saw her, he thought the world had misread colour. Even the red of her nails seemed like a new red. She smiled at him over her cappuccino and asked, Do you do custom work? He said yes with a voice that forgot it had learned to be shy. She wanted a bookcase, not any bookcase, but something that whispers, not shouts, quality. He worked 3 nights straight, hands numb, and delivered a piece as smooth as an extra thought. Amma paid double. Then she asked him to sit. She loved the design. She loved his hands. Her compliments arrived dressed like promises. Soon the cafe table became their ritual. She taught him to order things without checking the price first. She spoke a language that sounded like the future. Distribution, expansion, better clients, city apartment. You're brilliant, Kofi, she said, but brilliance needs better company. His mother watched them from the dirt road sometimes, her wrapper smudged with garden soil, smiling, but worried at the corners. One evening, over groundnut stew, she said softly, Remember, a tree does not forget the earth because it is touching the sky. Kofi nodded, but Pride, tall, slick-backed, cologne-heavy, had begun to stroll beside him like a new friend. Pride had a voice like Amma's, only more confident. Your mother is good, Pride murmured, but you are grown. Men do not carry their childhood on their heads like basins. When Amma asked Kofi to consider renting a flat closer to the city centre, he hesitated. Then Ma, he said. Amma tilted her head. A man who wants to lead a company must first lead his life. You can still visit, but you can't wear muddy slippers to a boardroom. Essie said nothing when Kofi told her. She sliced okra into perfect coins and nodded. Go, my son. But remember the road back. The day Kofi moved, Pride clapped him on the back. Finally, it said. Amma kissed him at the door, and Acey, small against the doorway, hugged him as if trying to leave a weather on his shirt, a scent of home that rain could not wash out. He did not look back. Not really, not the way one looks to make sure the light in a mother's eyes has not dimmed. The new flat had glass that made Kofi feel translucent. Amma introduced him to her circle, men who wore watches like declarations, women who laughed like they were used to owning the punchline. Kofi was still the carpenter, but artisanal now, a word Amma uttered as though it were a sword that knighted him. Commissions came, bigger and faster. A boutique hotel wanted 20 headboards. A law firm needed a wall installation. Amma's uncle promised introductions. Kofi's phone, once a reluctant bird, learned to sing constantly. Pride moved in with them. It liked polished floors and began to speak in plural. We are going places, it said. We don't have time for old stories and village proverbs. Calls from Isi came during meetings. Ma, I'll call back, he'd whisper, then forget. Money transfers replaced visits. He told himself this was better, more efficient. He rationalised away the way her voice waited on the line. Kofi, Kofi, as if testing whether the world would echo. The first test came in the form of a phone call from the woman who sold plantain beside their old house. Acey had fallen and hurt her hip. Small, the woman said, but you know these things. Pain likes elders, Kofi told Amma. She was sympathy arranged like a bouquet. Beautiful, curated. Of course we'll send something, she said, scrolling through her phone. Physiotherapy, private nurse. Your mother must be comfortable. She paused, lowered her voice. But please don't bring her here yet. We have too much on. The hotel wants samples. Monday. Kofi visited the clinic briefly. A warm lunch in a plastic bowl. A kiss to the forehead. A promise. To return. He left quickly, wearing the guilt like a shirt a size too small. Pride told him not to overreact. If you go too often, she will rely on it, Pride said. Let the professionals handle it. You have important clients. The second test was more ceremonial. The Aquasidai festival approached, and his uncle in the old quarter begged him to attend. Your mother will be proud to see you pour libation, the uncle said. It fell on the same weekend as a pitch meeting for an investor group Amma courted with a battle plan of numbers and slides. What do you think? He asked Amma. She put a hand on his cheek. I think you choose us, she said. Tradition can live without you. This deal can't. Imagine 10 times your orders. Air-conditioned workshop, apprentices, a showroom. Come on, Kofi. This is the moment. Pride nodded behind her. Kofi skipped the festival. That night, his uncle sent a voice note. Drums in the background, laughter. Then Acey's voice, thin with disappointment but wrapped in love. Next time, eh? She said. I carried you to such festivals when you were small. Now carry me to one. He didn't reply. He saved the voice note and told himself he'd play it later, in a moment that deserved it. Later did not come. The investor meeting was bright and hungry. Amma dazzled. Kofi spoke about wood like a playwright. They left to applause. Amma hugged him in the parking lot, face fierce with triumph. We did it, she said. Now we can be who we were meant to be. The third test arrived quieter, with the suddenness only misfortune has rehearsed well. News broke that the importer uncle's company had been investigated for tax irregularities. Articles multiplied like termites. Phones, once so eager, became judges. Calls about distancing and pending clarity. A law firm postponed payment on the installation. The hotel reduced its order. The investor group froze all new deals. Amma's calm cracked. We just need a month, she said, staring at spreadsheets like maps out of a jungle. 5 weeks. 8, maybe. We'll survive this. Weeks became storms. Bills doubled. Clients halved. In the whirl, Acey called again about her hip, the pain that had learned to linger. I will come, he said. Soon. He did not go. Pride kept refolding his excuses into nicer origami. It's not neglect, it's strategy. Build now, love later. One evening, when rain bullied the windows, Kofi returned to the flat to find Amma sitting like an apology on the sofa. A suitcase waited beside her, like a witness called to testify. She didn't make him ask. I can't do this, she said quietly. My uncle is, I must stabilise. Our Joa's firm in Accra wants me. They're clean. It doesn't make sense to carry this weight when I didn't put it on my own shoulders. You taught me about wood. Let me teach you about life. Sometimes we step away. We, he said, the word turning to smoke in his throat. Amma blinked. The nails he had once admired looked like something sharp. I need to save myself, she said. You will too. We can talk when things are better. Pride, shameless, changed sides mid-speech. She is right, it said. You were too sentimental. Focus. Win her back with success. The landlord's patience ended next. A notice arrived. A deadline followed. Kofi sold tools. He moved out with a suitcase that looked familiar. Pride did not help him carry it. He found a tiny room near the bus station, a rectangle that whispered mould. He took repair jobs again, the kind that paid in crumpled CDs and thanks. He was lonelier than he had ever been in his mother's small house. Yet he told himself he would call her when his head cleared. Days made new excuses. The night he was evicted for the second time, this time from the room near the buses, he put his remaining things into the old blue basin. Rain insisted on falling. He was heading nowhere with the stubbornness of someone who has run out of directions when he saw her. A woman in a threadbare dress, struggling with a wooden handcart full of oranges. One wheel had lodged in a pothole. The cart leaned like a tired man. People passed, annoyed. She muttered, pushed, failed. Kofi paused. Pride wasn't there to advise him. Pride didn't like rain. He dropped his basin in the doorway of a shuttered shop and ran to the woman. Hold, he said, bracing the cart. He shouldered the corner, grunted, and with a coordinated lift and pull, they freed the wheel. Oranges trembled but did not fall. God bless you, the woman said between breaths. What do I owe? Nothing, he said, surprising himself with how easy the word felt. You owe me nothing. She asked his name. He gave it. I'm Ajoa, she said. My brother is Kweku. He runs a small joinery by Asafo. He always needs strong hands. She paused, reading his silence. You look like you know wood. Kofi laughed, the laugh of a cracked jar that still holds water. I do, he said. Maybe I will pass by. He did. The next morning, hunger widened his belly. He went to the joinery. Kweku's workshop smelled of sawdust and old songs. Men worked shirtless, their chests mapped with scars of ordinary days. Kweku tested Kofi with an impossible assignment, a warped door that refused to believe in hinges. Make it honest, Kweku said. If you can. Kofi stripped the door, planed it in even, patient strokes, checked the fit, shaved again, waited for the wood to confess its true shape. When he remounted it, the door swung as if it had never learned stubbornness. Kweku nodded once. Come tomorrow, he said. Twist, the story's quiet architect, stood up. Because the first big job Kweku handed Kofi was installing shelves and benches at a community clinic just off the old quarter. Issi's clinic. Kofi walked in carrying wood, and the smell of disinfectant tried to erase his gait. He saw her through the curtain, his mother grey at the temples, sitting with another woman, teaching her to stretch her legs in careful arcs, smiling when pain allowed. Essie looked smaller and larger all at once. Pride, lazy and late, arrived with a suggestion to creep away and avoid the scene. Kofi did not listen. He stood in the doorway. Ma, he said, voice a pilgrimage. Essie's face, surprise, then worry, then the kind of softness that makes forgiveness look like water. She stood too quickly, winced, settled, then lifted her arms the way mothers do, like a gate that opens regardless of rust. My son, she said, you've come. I should have come earlier, he said, throat thick. I should have chosen you over. He couldn't finish. Essie shook her head. Don't count sad things. They multiply. He sat beside her bed. They talked simple things at first. Weather, wood, how the clinic's porridge tasted better than home porridge. Later, Essie's hand found his. Come back this evening, she said. Help me water the garden. It misses you, he did. After work, he went to her old compound, where the garden had surprised itself by surviving. They watered in the blue hour. Essie moved slowly, but insisted on carrying a small bucket. Strength returns when you ask it politely, she said, smiling at the stubborn okra. Days layered into a new life. Kofi kept working at Kweku's, kept visiting Essie, kept choosing small right things instead of large impressive wrong ones. He sold the basin, no longer to carry his life, but because he did not need to move it all the time. The neighbours began to greet him again, not with whispers, but with the ordinary warmth he had once taken for granted. One Saturday, a child from the clinic, a girl who sold plantain chips after school, sat near Kofi as he sanded a bench. "Uncle," she asked, "why does the wood become smooth only after it suffers?" Her question was a teacher wearing the face of a child. Kofi blew dust from the plank. "It doesn't suffer," he said, hearing his own voice listen. "It returns to its better self." "Like you?" she asked without malice. He nodded. "Like me." Essie wasn't magically healed. Karma doesn't bargain down pain. But Essie was steadier, and so was he. Kindness, the quiet antagonist of pride, had begun to sleep on his doorstep. 3 months later, a project manager from the city council visited Kweku's shop. There was grant money to refurbish public libraries in the region. The manager needed someone who could build sturdy shelves quickly and train youth apprentices. Kweku pointed at Kofi. "He can make wood honest," Kweku said, "and he knows how to teach." The manager's eyes widened. "We've heard your name," she said, "from the clinic and from the market women. You fixed doors and didn't charge when they couldn't pay. You helped Ajor in the rain. People remember." She smiled. "Can you start next week?" Kofi agreed, heart soft with an unfamiliar relief. On the way home, he stopped at the cafe, where he once learned to order without checking prices. The barista still recognized him. He checked the cost anyway. He laughed at himself, an honest laugh, not a cynical one. That evening he told Acey about the library project. She clapped her hands the way children clap at fireworks. "Your father loved stories," she said. "He would be proud that you are building houses for stories now." A week later, as Kofi and his new apprentices installed the first row of shelves, Amma walked in. She stood, expensive and unsure, in the doorway. The city council had hired her firm to oversee community partnerships. Fate, a trickster, had arranged an inevitable meeting. "Kofi," she said, trying to read his face like an old letter. "You look good." He nodded, steady. Pride, long diminished, tried to rehearse old lines, but Kofi had no role left for it. "Hello, Amma," he said. He introduced her to his apprentices, to the plan drawings. He pointed to a corner where a reading nook would sit. Small, bright, deliberate. He did not ask about her uncle, or her city job, or the man she might be with now. When she praised the work, he said thank you like a full stop. During the meeting, a councilwoman asked about community engagement. Kofi suggested weekend workshops, where elders could tell folk tales and children could build simple stools to sit on while listening. Amma smiled at the idea, surprised. The councilwoman approved. "Let the library belong to the people," she said. That Saturday, Issy arrived at the library with her walking stick and a cloth bag of oranges. She sat under the window light and told a story about a proud rooster who forgot the hand that sprinkled his feed. The children laughed. The elders nodded. Kofi watched. A man harvesting a crop he hadn't planted all alone. As the last shelf went up, Kofi ran his palm along the wood. It was smooth, not because it had been flattered by soft hands, but because it had been worked, planed, corrected. The shelves stood straight. The room, bright with new possibility, smelled like learning. He had paid a price for his earlier choice. He had paid it in loneliness, in lost income, in a silence between a mother and a son that neither of them deserved. But the debt had taught him to recognize wealth that banks do not count. When the library opened, the town came as if books were rain in a season of dust. Children ran their fingers down spines like paths they might later walk. The mayor mentioned sponsors and the council. Then he handed the microphone to Issy. The old woman thanked a long list that included Kweku and Ajoa and the plantain seller who had lent her wheelbarrow to move stools. Last, she thanked her son without looking at him, because she knew he would cry if she did. "I'm not good with speeches," Kofi said when they called him forward. He looked at the faces, his apprentices, the elders, Amma among the officials, his mother steady as a lamp. He told a story instead, simpler and smaller than his error, but big enough to hold the lesson. "There was a boy," he began, who thought success was a hill you climb alone. At the top of the hill was a house with glass walls. He wanted that house. He climbed and climbed. The boy's mother called for him to come help tend the garden, but the boy said he was too busy. While he climbed, a storm came, and the hill became too steep. He slipped. He fell. Not all the way, but enough to learn. He paused. The room breathed. When he was down, a woman with a cart of oranges got stuck near him. He helped her, not because he was successful, but because he finally remembered how to be a person. That help led to hands that lifted him. He found work that fed him without starving his heart. He returned to his mother's garden and found it had grown without him, and that there was still space for his hands. He exhaled. Sometimes you don't need a glass house. Sometimes you need a room full of shelves and a chair where your mother can sit and tell stories to your children. Applause moved through the library like harmless thunder. Pride was nowhere. In its place, another figure had taken up residence inside Kofi, one that spoke less and listened more. Humility wore no cologne. It smelled like sawdust and orange peels and old proverbs. In the weeks after, Kofi's days found a rhythm that replaced the old drumline of ambition. He rose early, checked on Isi, worked at the library sites with his apprentices, and spent evenings at the clinic repairing loose boards or fixing window latches. He saved little, but he owed no one, and went to sleep with his chest quiet. When clients came, because word of good work walks, they found a man who asked sensible questions and answered his phone even when the name on the screen was Ma. Amma remained part of the council's oversight team. She was professional, polite, unexpectedly careful with the community budgets. Once, as they stood by a truck of donated books, she said, "I judged too quickly before." Kofi smiled, not to absolve her. Time had already handled that, but to show that he was not carrying that weight round. "We both did," he said, in different ways. When he had a chance to expand the joinery, he insisted on a workshop that doubled as a classroom on Saturdays. The first morning, the child from the clinic asked if wood could learn to read. "It reads our hands," he said, "so mind what you write." At home, Essie's hips still complained on rainy days, and her laughter still chased shadows to the edges of rooms. On one such night she pressed his fingers and said, "You have become new old." Like a proverb a child learns and a grandfather repeats, Kofi nodded. He had returned to the earth that raised him. He had not shrunk, he had rooted. The reversal completed itself quietly. One afternoon, the boutique hotel that had dropped his order called back. The manager had heard about the libraries, about the apprentices, about the reading nooks. "We want you to design a small library in our lobby for travellers," she said. "Budget is fair." "Timeline is yours," Kofi accepted. Careful not to mistake the invitation for a coronation, he told Easy first. Then he called Kweku to share the work. He called Ajoa to buy oranges for the workers. He called the child from the clinic to pick some of the books. He did not call Pride. Pride no longer had signal here. On the opening day of the hotel's lobby library, Kofi placed the last book on the shelf and looked at his hands. They were still nicked, still honest. He imagined the boy he had been, staring at glass walls and calculating the size of his greatness. He wanted to tell that boy that greatness is sometimes a chair pulled up for an elder, sometimes a shelf that doesn't wobble. He walked outside where the sky was a wide, forgiving blue. He dialed his mother. When she answered, he said the simplest true thing he had. "Ma, I'm coming home. Do you want oranges?" "Bring 2, she said. "One to eat, one to share." He carried both. Moral: love that asks you to abandon those who raised you is not love but pride in fine clothing. Honour is not a feeling you keep. It's a choice you repeat, especially when success tempts you to forget. Before today ends, call or visit the person who first opened a door for you, parent, mentor, neighbour, and thank them. Then choose one practical act of care you can do this week to make their life easier